Hello guys and welcome to the National Leprechaun Museum Talking Series, and today it's me Mark and I'm joined by
Paudie. Hello interwebs.
so enthusiastic. But today we're talking
what are we talking again?
We're talking Winter Solstice.
We're talking the Winter Solstice. Oh
yeah. What's with that?
Well, let's start with the word itself first of all.
Winter.
The time of year it's cold. Solstice translates roughly as standing still. So it's the time of year when the sun stands still in the sky and everything around it is still, and everyone is waiting with bated breath to see if the sun will win out and there'll be another year. The sun stands still and gets freaky.
Gets freaky in what way?
It gets freaky. It the shaft of light comes down
Yeah.
to the land, goes down into the passage tomb at Newgrange, impregnates the universe with new life.
Okay.
And the days can start getting longer again. And for anyone coming to us from the equator, the days it happens. The days get longer and shorter here. And during winter we have about 8 hours of light?
Yeah.
8:45 in the morning to 4:30 at night.
I think it's even a little bit less than that. Yeah. But I suppose it being overcast and that kind of effect as well. It's like 3:30 and it's quite dull outside. And the street lights start to come on. And I mean, away from kind of the mythical side of it, I just know kind of like growing up in the state, we were so kind of ruled by the daylight.
Yes.
So usually it was a case when the street lights came on, just like during the summer, it was time to go home.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't going around with phones to tell time. We absolutely didn't have a watch.
No.
But yeah, the sunlight kind of dictated what we were able to do. And I never wanted to get up and go to school in the mornings where it was still dark. It just felt unnatural. I wanted to do nothing.
Turning on the light in the morning and that feeling in your eyes when you've just turned on the light and you're like, oh no, don't make me do this. But
the light comes on in your cell, there's a bang on the metal door and you're told it's time to get up. You get an hour in the yard.
After I tunnel through the wall.
But to bring it back to us not messing and joking, you're saying like where it hits and impregnates a tomb and the shaft of light. Ireland is basically, I know we've talked big stones before, but Ireland is set up in a way to react to these times of the year, and it's genius. It is really genius.
Well, it's important because obviously when these things were built, nobody had a watch, nobody had a calendar, so their lives revolved around agriculture.
Yeah.
In a way, we wake up in the morning, we look in the fridge, hopefully there's milk there, but they have to go out to the cow and milk it themselves. So their lives revolve around agriculture, so they need to know exactly when is the time for reaping and sowing, when is the time of year when it's going to be particularly dark, and when is the time of year when things are going to start gradually getting light.
Yeah.
So they can calculate and work out for themselves when they're going to sow for the harvest.
Yeah, I suppose our work, not to compare ourselves to labourers, agricultural farm workers, but it's very seasonal work as well. So we understand that preparing, and then the prep you get coming out of the winter back into the spring and into the summer. But there's a lot of downtime during the winter, and the winter solstice kind of celebrates as a time celebrates that almost doing nothing.
Yeah, it's a bit like St. Patrick's Day being in the middle of Lent. Christmas is in the mid, and the solstice was in the middle of winter, so so the winter didn't seem quite so long. Yeah. And dark and lonely.
Yeah, you had to have some highlights.
Definitely.
You said Christmas there. Obviously, there's no direct thing between the two, but it's kind of worked out all right.
Maybe if you go far enough back, maybe Saturnalia had some association with the solstice in Roman times, and then obviously Saturnalia becomes Christmas later on.
I think it's also just got a gap in the calendar.
You do.
It's just like, let's put it there.
Yeah,
it's like when I'm trying to route up work with a museum, just wherever it fits.
They can come in that day because there's no other day and I need them.
But the winter is great for kind of like being indoors and getting people together. And I know this will become kind of, people won't get the references when this video lives on, Paudie, but like at the time of COVID, like, and we see in Ireland there's a chance for more households to come together for a brief period. But it is really about kind of sitting down and eating and spending time together.
The surprising thing about COVID was that we were never closer while being so very far apart. So we couldn't actually physically go to one another, but we were very conscious that for our own mental health, for our own well-being, and we were conscious, we were compassionate. I know, you know.
Past tense. We were.
Yeah, we're going back to Mad Max Fury Road now, but but we were, during COVID, we were quite compassionate. We were very aware that people need that human connection.
Yeah.
And we went out there, well, digitally, we went out there,
which we're still doing.
Yeah.
And it's a skill and something that we will keep going on, and that'll allow us to, you know, engage with people that we wouldn't normally do. Even people on the other side of the equator, Paudie.
Even people on the other side of the equator.
Yeah, we're here talking about winter, we'll see this and be like, nah. That was just as much of an Australian accent as another.
The trees are on fire and there's foam on the beach in the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why it's so incredibly easy to mix up the solstice and Christmas, because so much of what Christmas looks like on your Christmas cards or comes to us from the solstice. My own namesake is here before us, the holly.
Yes.
The holly was brought in to people's huts and crannogs and homes because it's evergreen, and the Druids were obsessed with the idea of immortality, of living forever, and that was a little bit about what the solstice was about. It was about bringing new life, a new cycle of life, living again. Whereas you had the holly out there, or you had various other evergreens, and you could see that it seemed to them that it lived forever. It just kept going and going and going, and it was extra special because it's halfway between a tree and a bush. So you can, it was almost like it was tailor-made to bring it inside to celebrate eternal life.
But mistletoe is a similar kind of thing as well then, like it's kind of what is and what isn't, because it grows basically as a parasite's the wrong word, but it grows on trees as opposed to being a thing itself. It doesn't really come up out of the ground.
Mistletoe was higher in the hierarchy than holly because it's a less common plant. It's a parasite, but if you're from Kilkenny, Wexford or Limerick, then you might have a lot of mistletoe and you might be wondering what are they talking about, but they are the counties where it's most common, but to the Druids it seemed quite rare compared to the holly. And the tradition with the mistletoe was, if it's so sacred that you had to stop what you were doing, especially if you're fighting and you're two warriors. If you suddenly find yourself under the mistletoe, you have to stop what you're doing, because you cannot fight beneath mistletoe. It's too holy, too sacred. And over the thousands of years, when the warriors have gone and Cuchulainn and Finn McCool have gone on, then that evolves into the idea that when you're under the mistletoe, you should have a snog, have a kiss.
And that's great and all that, but I have so many issues with it now because there's that pressure to it's a massive like red flag. It's like consent's almost not an issue. Informed consent's almost like a non-issue. So it's a nice idea. It's kind of silly, but it's, I mean, you want to be careful with it. Be careful who you hold the mistletoe over. Yes is yes, no is no.
Yeah, the Irish take kissing very seriously. Obviously, a lot of people take kissing very seriously. But
not you by how you're phrased. It's like, I'll kiss anyone.
Well, I'm thinking of the French, the Italians,
where it's done as a greeting and it's not sexualized. It's a connection and friendship thing. And I get that. And in Ireland, it's really not like that at all. But the evergreen and the holly I love. Like, I love when I see it kind of growing around place, because I remember a few years ago, well, more than a few years ago, seeing it not in winter and be like, wow, what's that Christmas plant doing? But some other ones then, like the poinsettia and stuff like that, which have become like kind of symbols within, like, around Christmas. You're like, that doesn't even belong here.
I've never had a poinsettia that lived past January. I've never bought a pancetta and had it again the following year. Maybe I'm just terrible at keeping
I don't know whether they're annuals or like whether they are meant to last. I know they're incredibly poisonous.
Yes, to cats and dogs. Keep your cat and dog away from your pancetta.
But that was another thing then with plants and with berries and fruit, was to keep your animals away from them. I know it's the same with ragworth, and they said they associated with them with these kind of like the other world people. Yes. So you wouldn't go near them out of respect, but really they're like dangerously. The berries off mistletoe are horrendous as well.
Incredibly poisonous, yeah. To animals, and the way of explaining that was like that's somebody else's food.
Yeah,
you leave it alone.
So we have the winter solstice and we have the summer solstice, and then we have the equinox as well. Like our calendar is broken up really, really well.
Yes.
And that level of understanding again is just so impressive that they had all of this mapped out. Mm-hmm. And modern calendars have worked quite well with that stuff. But the shift in people's mood and mentalities in the winter is massive as well.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no getting away from the fact that it is more of a struggle for a lot of people in the darker nights, and how they cope in other countries where there is, like, I mean, we get, let's say, 7 to 8 hours of light on a day, and there are countries that at times a year get 1 or none.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if winter is easier if you have a cyclical time, like the ancient Irish and the Druids, where time is going around in a circle over and over again.
Yeah.
Or if it's more difficult when you have linear time, where winter is going, like we got from Christianity, where like time is going in a straight line.
Yeah.
From start to finish. I sometimes wonder about that.
Now's the time to wonder about it.
Now's the time.
That's what we're here to talk about it. It'd be nice to have like kind of like with the lives where people kind of come along with us on it. But in terms of our stories and the influence in our stories, is there stories that you like from this time of year?
You see, part of the standing still business is that everything stood still.
There was no events, no noteworthy events.
I wouldn't say there were no noteworthy events. There are Irish winter stories, but but there's lots of stories associated with Newgrange, of course. The famous year and the day.
Yeah.
And Angus, the god of love, is very big around this time. And the dream of Angus, of course, where he's I always think of him as like a teenager in the bed. He's had a dream about a very beautiful girl, and when he wakes up he can't find her anywhere. His uncle turns up and immediately recognises that the boy is lovesick, Bob Darragh, and so they go on the hunt for this beautiful girl, and they find that she's enchanted in a lake. She's stepping in and out of the form of a swan.
Yeah.
And he bends down towards the swan, basically. You're a very beautiful swan.
Love is blind.
Love is blind, and sometimes you fall in love with a very white bird.
Yeah, but and it's the thing when in all these stories, they're always the most beautiful woman in Ireland, or Angus was the most beautiful man in all of Ireland. Yeah. Definitely has the focus on that. All right. But again, back to it being winter, it is a great time for storytelling.
Yes. Because
we also have the time to do it.
Yes.
And again, that's reflected in our work. I know we tell stories as our job, but this is a time for us to kind of harvest new stories.
Yeah.
You know, for us to learn new things and kind of extend our portfolio, as it were.
Yeah. And I think to a certain extent that's what the storytellers were doing with the stories of the Cailleach.
Yeah.
Which is bringing in this character that is so associated with winter.
Yeah.
You have with the goddess Bridget, you have the 3 ages of a woman's life, and then you have that ready-made character already associated with winter, and then your imagination can let fly, and you can write all kinds of witch stories for this time of year.
I just remember, I can't remember what book, I can't even remember what story, but there's an image in my head of the Cailleach jumping from landmass to landmass with a massive hammer on a long handle, and she's forming the mountains of Ireland by just basically clefting the earth with this huge hammer. And she's an incredible character. I know on the outside of the museum we have an image which represents her. The little magnesium disc with the face on it.
Oh yes, yeah.
But she is a great winter character, but she's quite harsh.
Oh yeah.
Like she'd survive a winter.
Yeah, she would survive a winter. And is this ageism? I don't think so. I think it's more a kind of obsession with the spring that comes after winter.
Yeah.
With the new life that comes after winter.
But yeah, that's fair. I mean, everything's beautiful when it's bright and sunny and warm.
Oh yeah.
And everything's kind of dark and
having faith and hope in the spring that comes after winter is very important in Irish storytelling. There's so many examples of a Cailleach turns up at your door. I'm thinking of the story of Niall of the 9 hostages, where they go to the well and meet the Cailleach, and she proposes to all of them. Or the story of Diarmid O'Divna as well, where the Cailleach turns up at the door. She goes around to all the men and says, "Well, will you go to bed with me?" They all turn her down. Of course, Niall in the story of the 9 hostages, or Diarmid O'Divna, they of course, well, she's very poor and lonely old woman, I better look after her. And then she turns into a beautiful maid, and new life is brought. And I think that's about having hope and faith in the spring that comes after the winter. And then the sad thing about the Diarmid O'Divna story and the Kingdom Under the Sea was that he had faith in her at first, and but he kept remembering that she used to be ugly. He kept being pessimistic about it. He kept saying that you used to be a Cailleach. So the former Cailleach, now beautiful maiden, lives in Diarmid's home, beautiful castle he has built for her, and Diarmid has a huge brood of puppies. Now his greyhound gives birth to a lot of puppies, and he goes away on various business trips with the Fianna, and one of the Fianna turns up. The maiden shows him hospitality, and of course as they're leaving, she gives away one of the greyhound puppies. Diarmid comes back, he's flabbergasted. They're my puppies. Heartbroken, and says to her, "You should remember your place. Remember, you used to be ugly." And
he throws it back at her.
And she says, "Well, you keep saying that, and I'm going to leave you." And eventually she does leave him, and he finds her. He goes under the sea. There's that beautiful scene of him being taken into the kingdom under the waves, the fields of the kingdom under the waves laid out before him in the water, and he rescues her, but he has to forget all about her, and she has to forget all about him, because
it's kind of heartbreaking. But he was quite a swine in it.
He was quite a swine in it, and I do think it is essentially, it's about having the hope in the future that you can be happy in the here and now in the springtime, and don't always be thinking and remembering that winter is horrible. You know?
But you have it when it's too hot in the summer. You're like, "Oh, I can't wait for the cooler days," and then when it's winter, like, "Oh, I can't wait for it to be warm again." You know what I mean? It sounds like we're never happy. But it's funny when you're talking about that the O'Divna story, and because it just makes me think of Shrek. Like, but Fiona, and it's but that's her natural form, and it's about kind of being happy with that and celebrating that as well. Kira would love that. We made a Shrek reference, but these modern things, I mean, they are based on fairy tales and fairy stories. And it's amazing when you talk about the fields under the sea and that image of them going down into water. It's so easy to picture. But I realised you were saying I've never seen it illustrated. I'd love to see it animated. I don't think I've seen a book where
and it would be perfect in a children's book, you know, because it's about loving someone even though they hurt you sometimes. And it's about being optimistic and hopeful, and it's heartbreaking at the end, of course, but all Irish stories are heartbreaking at the end. No.
What a miserable shower.
There's no Irish story where the final line is and they all lived happily ever after. Because it's just not realistic.
Our stories don't begin like other stories begin, and they don't end.
No. Like sometimes they don't end. It just
again, Fionn McCool is still drawing breath somewhere.
Keep going on and on.
Yeah.
Which is great. I love it. I love that about Irish.
Well, it means
stories.
we're never going to run out of content.
No.
This is going to go on forever and ever and ever. The lighting of the candles, I know it's sound, that's a big thing in terms of making warmth in the home. You've got the bonfires and that as well. But fire, which we've spoken about before, seems to be a thing, obviously in winter as well, which is a constant kind of symbol throughout the cold, dark winters.
You have when you have an agricultural society and you use flames to purify cattle and remove ticks and that kind of thing, then you're going to incorporate that into your faith, into your religion. So you don't really have an Irish festival without a big fire.
No.
And it's sometimes the defining thing about the festival is that there is only one fire and nobody else is allowed to light the fire.
Light a fire.
And fire is, of course, with the solstice, is the fire of the sun being reborn
and bringing that into your home and giving life into a home then as well.
And then, of course, this gets incorporated into Christmas, where you're lighting a light to guide the souls. And the holly was about souls as well. Towards them, it was to indicate a safe place for the souls of the departed to hang out, essentially. So you had the holly on your door, the symbol of everlasting life, the evergreen, and then these lost souls out in the wild would be able to come and rest themselves.
You'd have to take your horseshoe down now.
Yeah,
horseshoe would have to. You probably only had one hook on your door anyway, so the horseshoe comes down, the holly wreath goes up.
I got that from a story in Old Moore's Almanac. So
really,
I take it with a pinch of salt.
Paudie, I take everything you say with a pinch of salt because I've learned that. But when you say something with enough confidence,
well, the Old Moore's Almanac is a great place for those kind of things.
People could be watching this or watch anything that we say, and there's always different versions and different takes on anything.
Oh yeah.
So we're never being kind of prescriptive with stuff.
No.
But our understanding as storytellers and people have surrounded ourselves by this. But I think where we get stuff wrong, we never mean any offence by it.
No.
But I've been corrected mid-tour on details of stories. It's like, no, my grandfather told me that story and it's actually this. Right. I have to go, is it? That's brilliant. I must remember that for next time. And then go back to my way of doing things.
It's all about the audience. I've said it before. There's a clear difference between the Irish storytelling style and the Scottish storytelling style. The Scottish shanachis very much are about replicating the story through the ages exactly as their father told it before them,
which is invaluable as well in terms of preservation. But it is very different to how we do it.
Yeah.
It changes from week to week, from session to session, and from county to county. The stories change, but it does lead to a bit of rivalry when it comes to a lot of stories and a lot of traditions as well.
Places and things. No, that happens over there.
Yeah.
In Carlow, no, it happens over here.
And when people call things, it's dressing gown house coat arguments as well.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the same thing, but what do you call it?
Yeah.
But of course, everyone who doesn't agree with you is wrong. What a great mentality. So what have we got next coming up then once we're through to the winter solstice? What's the next in our calendar? What's the next thing? What are we looking forward to? What are we hopeful for?
Well, we're coming into this. We think of winter, spring, so we think of winter still being going on in January and February, whereas we're in the period now after the solstice. You're into the period where the days are getting longer. You're moving towards
things are getting, because we have the brighter half and the darker half of the year. So from this point, it's getting brighter. So we're now, like after winter solstice, we're in the brighter half of the year. It may not feel like it.
Yeah, you're moving towards Beltana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is always great fun. We do, our calendar just allows for so much celebration.
Yes.
So much festivities and eating.
Yes.
Oh, it's just winter food. I don't know, maybe because it is winter, I feel better about winter food, and I think there's no way summer food can compare with it. And I'm probably not going to feel that way when the summer comes around.
And all the people who feel so, listen. If you take nothing else away from the way I've lived my life, It's the people who on January 1st are feeling very guilty about all the things that they've eaten in December, and are like booking 4 gym sessions on one day. Listen, don't give yourself a hard time. It's the middle of winter. It's Christmas. Food is sociable at Christmas. You're not sitting in a dark cave eating 6 pints of Haagen-Dazs. You're with your family. You're eating together. And don't give yourself too much of a hard time in January about the food you ate in December.
No, I mean, by all means, do whatever it takes for you to feel good and kind of enjoy yourself.
True, I suppose.
Love a bit of exercise, but I'm not going to feel guilt or shame about anything that I consume. More, though, is usually a word I use an awful lot.
More.
Yeah, more and more. Second helpings.
I'm trying to think, is there any winter story that comes to mind to you? Something that happens when in the cold and the dark?
I mean, in terms of folk tales, but they're not specific to that. It's those, you know, those images of the bursting in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where the door swings open and in comes the character. It's strange. The Rathcoffey Puka for me always feels like a winter story, or at least coming into the winter, because the land people were still working on the land, but kind of finishing up for the season. And we did that story on a live recently. Yeah. But
and for the bardic stories, like winter isn't the time to go fighting.
Oh no, you wouldn't fight in winter. What's the point? Winter in our stories is when babies are made. Yeah. It seems to be the way that it works. That's when babies are made. Angus Oak has a lot on his plate.
Yeah, I always think maybe alright the pillow talk in the town is. I always think of them there in the tent sometimes. Yeah. With the winter going on outside, keeping each other warm.
But there's loads of great winter imagery. They may not be the focus of the story, but Deirdre's Sorrows. Yeah. The imagery she has where she's looking for a man whose skin is as white as the snow and hair is as black as the rain and lips as red as the blood from the dream she had. Yeah. And she just has that image. And for me that was just such a, and there's a great book, there's a great version done of that, Oscoelga in Irish, and it's all illustrated, and it's actually a graphic novel, and it's just black, white and red. Oh wow. They're the only colours that are used. The Tawn, there's a version of it, the Tawn, but that's in colour. Wow. But the Deirdre Sorrow version is beautiful, but that snow, the red, the white and the black is perfect, and of course Nisha just embodies that for her. Yeah. But it's time for love.
Time for love.
Yeah. Loving food.
Loving food. And loving each other.
Well, Paudie, I love having these conversations, and the great thing is that they come out a couple of times a month now. Yeah. They're dropping out. I know I enjoyed our Christmas pudding when we did the food, so if this is your first talking series that you're seeing, make sure to go and check out the other videos that we've done. We've talked food, fire, weather.
Big stones.
Big Stones was our first one, and I'm sure we've got more conversations to come. So Paudie, thank you very much for your wealth of knowledge. I didn't know about the Holly Reel on the door, that one. You always give me something new to think about. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
Bye, interwebs.